Welcome. Allowing your body to settle in your seat. And letting your eyelids gently close. In today's meditation, we're going to be exploring overwhelm. And as you settle in, and as I say that word, you may notice that in this moment, and very likely in every moment, if you look closely enough, and sometimes you don't have to look all that closely, there is some element of overwhelm, some element of too much, even too much love, too much joy. It can feel like too much for the system, too much excitement. So it's good to just notice it's always kind of makes up a portion of our experience. And so today we have this opportunity to meet this thing that we call overwhelm, which is just a word, as a community, to learn to access a friendlier perspective, a friendlier way of being with it, of giving it space, of perhaps even recognizing that it is a portal. It is a means towards our evolution. So, as I say that word, overwhelm, do you notice anywhere in your system that gets activated? Perhaps you have been experiencing some overwhelm lately in your life. Sometimes it's a very small part of our experience, and other times it can be quite dominant and almost be, hmm, burst like in the foreground of our experience. And so in this moment, notice what that experience is for you, how overwhelm is resting, is being in your system today. And you may notice that regardless of where it's located in your body, there's this contrasting experience of energy wanting to flow, something pushing, and something pushing back. Energy wanting to flow, and then there's some resistance or a feeling like there's not enough space for it to move through, like the system is contracting, like it feels like too much if we were to let this energy move through. So when we're experiencing these common states, it can be really helpful to let go of perhaps our usual relationship with overwhelm and begin to see it with fresh eyes. What is this thing that I call overwhelm? What is it really? When I take off the label, when I don't really even use the word and I look into my direct experience, what is this thing that we call overwhelm? And oftentimes it will feel like there's just too much moving through, that we can't integrate it. that is too much for the system, whether that be the nervous system or the energy body. And sometimes when the judgment of too much comes in, or the evaluation of too much comes in, we tend to turn away from the experience. But today we're going to practice together to keep turning towards. So there's a lot of programming around turning away from overwhelm, distracting ourselves from it. And so today we're going to practice turning towards it so that we can begin to establish a new relationship with it. And even the idea that I'm overwhelmed with sadness, or I'm overwhelmed with worry, or let that all go. Just let it all go. Let what you think the cause of your overwhelm is, just let that be for now. And instead get really curious, turn towards, begin to see it with fresh eyes. What is this thing called overwhelm? You may feel what I described earlier as that kind of push-pull happening in your system. Something is moving, something is pushing against it. And so just open to that. It's, in fact, cooperate with the system. Let it push, let it pull. And before we go any further with this, you can just let that continue to happen. I'd like to collectively just bring our awareness to the breath, to the exhale, encouraging the body to settle down, to the inhale, encouraging the system to open to the space within and without. Exhaling, I settle, I land, I drop. Inhaling, I expand, I open. And let this breath coexist with the sense of overwhelm that we have brought forth, we have brought to the foreground for our exploration today. So breath is happening all on its own. And it's coexisting with that feeling of overwhelm that's being highlighted today. And you can even feel the inhale expanding into wherever the overwhelm lives in your body. So just let it expand into and gently touch the edges of that area. And you can feel the exhale as it drops. It can help to encourage the area that is holding, where the conflict might be happening, to also drop. So in other words, by making space for both the breath as it's coming and going, as well as the overwhelm, there's a kind of a synchronization that begins to happen. There's a kind of a communication that begins to happen. And the overwhelm and the place in the body where it's being held is riding that wave of breath. And it's a kind of invitation for overwhelm to come back into the folds of our being, because there's such a tendency to reject, because it's such an uncomfortable state. So letting it ride the breath, letting it be touched by the breath. Knowing that we are exploring this together, this universal human experience. In fact, possibly even a necessary human experience, a benevolent human experience. So we're opening to that possibility. And just notice any changes that you are aware of in that sense of overwhelm that we drew forth. Perhaps there's a little bit of relaxation, maybe more space. When we're giving our system, our mind, our body, our musculature, our nervous system, our energy body permission to feel this phenomenon called overwhelm. More space is created, more relaxation. And perhaps you discover, as I have, that when that is allowed to occur, we see that overwhelm is really oftentimes an enhanced energy flow through the system, which is a positive thing, is a healing thing for our body mind. In a system that is learning to mm, take in that higher frequency, that higher vibration. So when we're being challenged in life, either by really beautiful, expansive experiences, right? When we start to feel more joy, more creativity, more love, it can also be overwhelming for the system. Or where we're being challenged by things that bring forth anxiety or fear. The soul, the spirit comes forth to meet that challenge with increased energy flow. And the physicality, because it's denser, takes a little bit longer to open to that flow. And that's that point that we often call overwhelm. But if we can relax and be spacious and soft in the midst of that increased energy flow, it will begin to transform the nervous system. It will begin to bring forth new energies into the mind that are creative, that are evolutionary. It will reshape the nervous system to be able to hold more. So surrendering, you could say, to this sense of overwhelm with a willingness to consider that it is a very positive and beneficial state moving through. So notice how you feel as your system takes in these possibilities. There could be a greater sense of relaxation. You could feel also some energy flow and tingling in certain areas. And as the system makes space for overwhelm and energy that has been tied up, battling it, you could say, let's go. Notice that there may be more of an awareness of a sense of presence, a sense of the natural state that is beyond the mind, the body, the circumstances, the emotions, a state of presence. And so for the remainder of our time today, I invite you to lean back metaphorically and maybe even physically into a state of very simple presence and openness to the experience as it unfolds moment to moment, and a settling and allowing ourselves to really rest in and as presence. In the midst of all that is coming and going. Commit to presence for the remainder of our time here.